Good morning to everyone. I'm Usha Maheshwari here from Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Um, to begin with, I would like to request all the delegates to kindly use question and answer section to raise your questions after the session. And please be away from the chat because chat will be utilized by the panel members internally, and I request you to use the question and answer section. Now I begin with introduction to Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Bombay Chamber is a premier chamber of commerce and industry, and it is established in 1836. It means it is 184 years young, and one of the oldest chamber in the country, with a long and illustrious history of continuous service to trade and industry. The chamber represents 3,000 plus prime companies as its members, and as said earlier, that we are providing services to the in trade and industry for so many years. In reality, membership represents a wide spectrum of highly reputed and professionally run companies which are based in the city of Mumbai and all over the country also, whose manufacturing facilities and commercial influences spread not only over India but also internationally. So this is in brief about Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and I request you, for more information, you can visit our website www.bombaychamber.com. Now today we have gathered for an seminar where we are looking at how family businesses can cope in this difficult times. And we have eminent team here of speakers, Mr. Ashok Barat and Ms. Dr Mita Dixit, and both of them, and we are going to have a great dialogue and a lot of discussion on the family business and how do we cope in this current times on this. So let's have a little brief about Mr. Ashok Barat. To start with, Ashok Barat is a past president of Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry and is contributing a lot to the chamber's functioning, and in all the time we receive inputs on various aspects, and he's been able to very passionate, and he's been able to, in his tenure, establish a mediation center in the Bombay Chamber of Commerce. It's a great value add services which is added into Bombay Chamber services. And Mr. Barat is continuously guiding Bombay Chamber, advising Bombay Chamber on running of mediation services in the chamber. Now, Mr. Ashok Barat is by profession, he is a chartered accountant and company secretary. He retired in 2016 as managing director and chief executive officer of Forbes and Company Limited. Mr. Ashok has responsible and leadership positions in various Indian and multinational organizations, both in India and overseas, and responsible executive positions like at Hindustan level, Unilever, the RPG Group, Electrolux, Tesla and Hens, and now it is known as Kraft Hens. So likewise, Mr. Barat, we have, he'll be speaking about the family businesses in today's forum, and a lot of inputs we all are going to receive on this subject. Then we have Dr. Mita Dixit with us. She is from Equations Advisors Private Limited. She is a co-founder of Family Business Advisors. Dr. Mita Dixit is a co-founder of Equations Advisors Private Limited and specializes in guiding family-owned businesses of single and multiple generations. Mita is family business advisor, researcher, and educator with 24 years of experience in the management, consulting, strategic marketing, and organizational development. She helps owner families to create a unified vision, align roles and goals, plan succession, prepare for generations, transitions, and create a culture of good governance. And lot many services are provided by her to these businesses. Now we have Mita Dixit in dialogue with Mr. Ashok Barat. So I would now like to hand over to Dr. Mita Dixit to carry on the further proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ushaji. And thank you, Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry for organizing this webinar. And thank you all for joining us. I see there are some friends and there are clients and there are colleagues and partners here participating today. And I appreciate your taking of time for us to be with us. Mr. Barat, thank you for joining this webinar, accepting my invitation. Our today's conversation, or I would call it as Samvad, it's about the new normal for family businesses. And I'm sure it's going to be quite interesting and insightful as my several interactions with you while working with family businesses. I have a series of questions which I'm going to ask you, and we are going to interact with the participants to put your questions in the chat box, as Ushaji mentioned, so that I can pick them up later at the end of this webinar, the later part of the webinar. Recent months have proven to us that we simply cannot predict the future. The COVID pandemic has put us in such a situation that almost at all levels, uncertainty is glaring us. When will be the post-pandemic era arrive and the new normal will begin is an enigma. But there are a few things we are sure about. Whenever the new normal begins, our working habits are going to change. Our business models are already started changing. And our outlook towards life will be quite different than what it is now or what we are going through and will come out from this era. In such a disruptive environment, what are the challenges of family businesses? What are they going to face, the issues and the dilemmas after the pandemic era is over and new normal begins? What are the lessons that they are going to be learning from this pandemic? I must say that almost 85% of India's businesses are family owned and controlled. And with this number of businesses, they are the backbone of our economy. So it's today's topic, new normal for family businesses, is quite apt and appropriate for the time today and near future that's going to happen. Let me start with my first question, Mr. Barat. Given the uncertainties around us, what do you think the new normal is going to be like, especially for family businesses?
Thanks, Mita, and thanks to Usha for that rather generous but undeserved introduction. It's a pleasure to be at the service of Bombay Chamber. I, in fact, at times feel that it has been closer to my heart than many of the places that I worked as an employee. And I have a sense of belonging and a sense of almost commitment and responsibility towards the well-being of Bombay Chamber, which has been around for 180 odd years. So any event that the Bombay Chamber has, it's always a pleasure to be here. And this particular subject, which Mita, in fact, I can never say no to Mita. I worked with her on a few interesting assignments. And when she said that, she wants me to speak about family businesses, I thought that it was a very good opportunity and occasion to do so. Because, it's a family businesses, their confidence and their ability, which is going to drive the economic turnaround or the revival of this nation. they are the major element of the economy. And therefore, if they don't feel confident and if they don't do the right thing, then other elements will not fall into place. So it's a very appropriate time to do this. So with that brief introduction, let me just dive deep into this answer first. First and foremost, I think this COVID is a black swan event. We don't know its origins. There are enough theories floating around. You have the conspiracy theory, you have the accident theory. And the other day I was hearing the interview of a scientist from Harvard, and he said that a lot of these viruses have been actually trapped beneath the Arctic ice, because the ice tends to freeze these viruses. And with the melting of Arctic ice, many of these viruses are actually coming up. So thereafter, the transmission may happen through an animal to a human being, etc., etc. But the release of the viruses is happening because of the melting of the Arctic ice, and therefore it has to do with the climate and environment change. But whatever it may be, we don't know its origins. We can only speculate about its origins. And equally, we can also speculate about where it is going to end. There is no right answer. Different people will have different answers. But there are three things that are certain. The first thing is that this virus-led diseases, this is not going to be the last one. This is going to now stay with us forever. Whether COVID stays with us, or a mutation of COVID stays with us, or some other virus comes upon us, this is going to become a way of life. And in fact, I believe that for those who are younger in this audience, they will probably get to see one more pandemic in their own lifetimes. The frequency with which this will recur will happen more than it has happened before. The last one that happened was probably the Spanish flu. So there are lessons to be learned here, which will probably need to be very quickly used within your own lifetime. You cannot say that I just learned a lesson and I'll leave it back behind in a novel or in my autobiography and somebody else will read it. Okay, it will probably, you'll have to revisit it in your own lifetime. Second, any form of therapy or prophylactic is going to take months, if not years, to come. And therefore, we will have to deal with the situation and manage the situation, not that we will be able to escape the situation. So that's second. And the third thing that will happen is that it will impact not just family businesses, it will impact everything in our life. It will impact politics. Certainly, I start with politics because we Indians are very happy to discuss politics. It is going to disrupt political ideology and political alignments. It is going to certainly disrupt the economy, and that is why we are here today. It is going to disrupt society. It is going to disrupt individual behavior. It is going to disrupt family behavior. And to just give you a small example, one of the statistics why Indian contagion is much more is because we live, and in fact, this is a hypothesis, that we Indians tend to live in, joint families. So therefore, the youngsters go out and get infected and they come and infect the elders. The Western system where, you can actually separate the youngsters from the elders and protect the elders, that kind of a lockdown is not possible here, because there is a theory which says youngsters should be allowed to go to work and protect only the young and the infirm and the old. But at the end of the day, because people stay here in joint families, the youngsters will come back and infect the youngsters and the older people. So it is going to disrupt not just the larger social behavior, but it will also going to disrupt a lot of family behavior and create tension. Okay. So these are the three things that are certain. As a consequence of this, there will be multiple protocols that will emerge in the way we handle these problems. And these will be mandatory and inescapable. And they are not going to change over a period of time. People talk about VUCA, the VUCA world. The VUCA world has not yet arrived. It is just arriving. What you saw before was just a trailer. Okay. Ye show to ab chalu hua hai. This is the real VUCA world. The other were VUCA world that was driven by our own ambitions and maybe changes in technology. Here, there is nature itself creating that variable which will make VUCA really volatile. So there will be a lot of ways in which we will deal with the situation. and many of it will be mandatory. And I'll give you one small example, and that is the most important thing that I would want you to understand. If you look at the history of air travel in India, and this is an example that I keep on giving. I belong to a generation when I first traveled, I actually walked to the aircraft. There was no security. You bought a ticket and you got a boarding pass and you just walked into the aircraft. Today, there are so many protocols that have come into this. And one of the things now, you have to start taking off your shoes, then belts, and then taking out liquids, then putting liquids in a plastic bottle, so on and so forth. So many things have happened. Now there will be a biosurveillance, not only in airports, but in large organizations, in any social gathering. So in your wedding, you will have to probably have rapid testing for getting your guests in. Can you imagine the enormity of change that will happen? Forget about family businesses. It will change your life. And therefore, this is the right time to actually have a discussion on this subject, adult to adult. This is not the time for, to just wishing that, things will become normal. Yes, everything will become normal. As humans, we will get used to everything that happens to us.
Yes.
But it will be a new normal, which you cannot imagine. And it will be very, very different. So this is what I will say, that whatever we say will have to be in the context of this larger.
I think very well what you have brought out, this points, Mr. Barat, that it's our social quotient.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes.
Are you on mute?
No, I'm not on mute.
Okay, okay.
I'm not.
Mr. Barat,
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. I think participants can hear me. Mr.
I
Barat.
can't hear you.
Yeah. Please go ahead, Meeta.
Okay. But Mr. Barat, my question is for Mr. Barat, and if he can't hear me, then that's going to be a problem.
He
Barat,
can.
can you hear me? Now, can you hear me, sir? No, I think he's not been able to hear me. This just can you just check, Usha, at your end whether he's been, muted from your side?
Yeah, because just check it out, no, Madev.
Yeah, I'm moderating to participants, but he's not able to.
No, I'm able to hear you.
Mr. Barat has not been able to hear me, so it's
maybe with his instrument.
Okay. If you can, by the time you figure out, let me.
I can't hear you at all.
Oh, but I can hear you, Mr. Barat. Hello, I can hear you.
Can you just see
Can
that?
you hear me? Mr. Barat, can you hear me?
No, your voice is not coming through at all.
Oh.
Can I dial in again? Let me dial in again.
Yeah, please dial in again.
Okay. Meanwhile, I will just have my points or say
just
thoughts.
Let me leave and I'll come back again.
Sure, yes. Meanwhile, I'll have my points for our participants here. That family business is a very sensitive and very long-lasting phenomenon that has happened to our business. I'm sorry for this disruption happening, and this is telling us that technology is a big challenge. It is now, and it's going to be also in future to come. So this is one area which all of us, irrespective of being family businesses or businesses, will have to look into and get a hold of that. So let's take one learning lesson here is technology, and having command over technology or getting technology within our range is going to be really important, especially the business part of it. Okay. What Mr. Barat said, and I will continue, or I will take it from there, and I would say that the disruption is going to continue. Our changes which are going to come in our lives, we have to be prepared for it. The issue here is that how do we prepare? What do we do to prepare ourselves? Especially when I talk about family business. It is a very unique system, because one side, which I keep on talking about it every now and then, there is a family which is very sensitive, emotional, trust, and geniality, harmony is something that is close to us, close to our heart. And another side, business, which is very hardcore, and we with killer instinct, one needs to go, or say the families, owner families need to treat the business in a way, killer manner. Otherwise, given this VUCA and given this complexities, it's not going to be a long life or longer duration of sustenance. What we are seeing it with family in businesses, the promoter families, the owner families, the biggest challenge is going to be, how do we decide, what do we decide, and what should we do, what kind of actions we need to take in such situations where complexities and things are not clear to us. So whether we'll be surviving for a longer time, whether we'll be surviving only for another 10 years, 15 years, or whether it's another 5 years, we need to get out of the business, sell off the business, or close down the business and get into something else. So survival and being there in the business and exiting the business will be a challenge for families, most of them who are here with us today. So these are the questions which would be coming to your mind. Of course, I hope Mr. Barat joins us quickly so that we can get his perspective also. But one thing which I find that given this technology disruption here itself, communication is going to be a major impact, or say impact factor in our new normal, in our world where we are going to have a very different way of looking at life and different way of managing the business, and the way that we are family relationships and family equations are going to be. Communication is going to be a very crucial aspect. Now we know that what I'm saying is not very rocket science. It's, we all know about it. But what are we going to do, and how are we going to bring this communication as an agenda where family members especially have a common platform to share their views, to express their thoughts, to bring their aspirations, even if they are varied aspirations, if they are conflicting aspirations. But there is a way, that what is the way that they will come together on a platform and have their shared value, or have their shared vision, and have their shared communication platform. This is where I would like to give a few points or pointers which I interact with families and interact with our clients, and see that acceptance and honest acceptance of variation in families, in thoughts of families, in behaviors of family members is a reality. It's honest exception is required. It is the key that yes, as family members, we may be the founder generation, and there is a small family of two brothers or sisters and a couple of family members working and managing the business, and entrepreneurial efforts are going on, or the families which are cousin consortium. So there are 3 and 4 generations together in the business, and then they are managing, they are involved in the business. So what is really going to be the crux is your honest acceptance that yes, we are having individually, we may have different views, we may have different perspectives, we have different goals of our lives personally, as well as our way of looking at the business could be different. Yet, what is going to keep us together and what is going to keep us successful and moving in such calamities and such disruptions which come is our shared vision, our purpose. If all the family members, irrespective of this age and size, could be 18 years to 80 years old, and could be 2 generations and 3 generations together. But do we have a vision of our business, the purpose of our business common? Have we spelled it out? Have we discussed it? And this is what I would say, that the families with small or large number of members take some time, especially when this time where there is stress of managing the business, running the operations is lesser compared to what it used to be 3 months ago or 6 months ago. There is some free time available with the family together, and you're spending more time at home, obviously all the time at home, rather not just on the business, but take out some time and think and discuss among yourself. what is really we want to do? What is the purpose of our doing the business? Is our purpose just making money? And I'm sure that most of you will say, no, that we have already achieved. Or we may want to achieve, but then that is not the icon, that is not the purpose that we are looking at, that is not the beacon which is motivating us. More than that is either we want to be together as a family, we want to work together as a family, we want to own the family together, or we want to, at some point, we want to decide that this is the time that no, we cannot move ahead together. Maybe there are differences, or maybe there are opportunities, business opportunities, there are entrepreneurial opportunities where we separate out, and when we take our own different courses, we will be more safe, more secure in terms of our well-being, in terms of our wealth, in terms of our lifestyle, and in terms of our relationship. So it is important and necessary now that families start asking each other the question. Of course, this is what we facilitated as advisors, is to ask ourselves, go deeper in our minds and in our practices, in our behavior, and see that what do we really want to be the purpose of our business? What do we want to do with 10 years down the line? What do we want to be 20 years down the line? And that question will, this interaction amongst yourself will give us some new insights yourself, and see that what is going to be, how we are going to behave in the new normal. Now that looks like that we have lost Mr. Barat. So let me continue with my question, which I was going to ask him, and my views, or say his views, which I have been interacting with him quite frequently. So I know that this is a time of introspection, and this is the time to take an assessment of our own self. And we need to establish a clear-cut objective in front of us, and clarity that what is our new normal, when our new normal happens, in few months, in a year, or in couple of years or so, where are we going to be, where do we want to be as the owners, as the managers, as the leaders of the business. That is one issue which happened. And in this issue, your question would be coming to your mind that naturally, Mita, yes, what you are saying is true, well and done. I mean, it's all well said and done. But how does that happen actually? How do families decide? How the family members, when they have varied aspirations and different ambitions and goals, so how do we come to one aligned way of managing, looking at our business, looking at our family, looking at our legacy, and see that yes, we are going to be there for a long time. I'm assuming that yes, we say that we are going to be there for a long time, and we're not just talking about the exit route yet. Two things what the families, owner families, will have to do, irrespective of whether they need or they want, or they desire or not desire. This is going to be a mandatory thing. And two things which are going to be that families will have to prepare, will have to make their family plan, just like the business plan, family plan, and the family strategy. In the business, you'll all agree that when we have family strategy, yeah, Mr. Barat is here. Family strategy is very essential, very important, and spend a lot of hours and a lot of time in developing the strategies. Then why not in family? What is this family strategy? Who is going to lead the business? Or say from today, how are you going to lead the, it's not even who, but how are we going to train our younger generation to lead the business? What is going to be our involvement in the business? What are going to be our norms of our engagement in the business? Are we going to be running the business like because we are the owners, we are the promoters, we have taken the risk and we have put in the capital? So anything that what we want to do it, we can do. Or we want to look at professionally how the businesses will be done. The two things. One is a family plan.
Mr. Barat, Mita, Mr. Barat is with us.
Yes, I will. I'll just go back to him and finish my point. So strategy, and second is that how is going to be the environment within the family, which is going to be very strong, or say governance. Now, as Mr. Barat is back, Mr. Barat, we missed you for
Yeah. So in
time,
the interest
but
of
I was
time, because
sharing my views, which
yeah,
which we keep on discussing. So the question which I would say that now with the family and business being systems overlapping, and the family members having varied aspirations and different goals, what we discuss and we always say advise our clients that you need to have strategy and you need to have governance. Could you share your views on what is this family strategy is important, why it is important, and governance? How can
yeah.
families work on governance issue?
Okay. You see, I will not go for a very general answer. I'll go for a very specific answer in the context of COVID, because the problem here will be far more acute and far more difficult than what it would be under the normal circumstances. Because that is the context that I would like to emphasize on right through this entire conversation. So I think this is also a time when a family needs to do what is called as a stock taking. And I call it determining your destiny. The post-COVID, once everything opens and the economy starts limping back, the amount of resources that you will need to get back to the normal, if at all there is a normal or a new normal at least, is going to be 18 to 24 months. Large organizations are struggling, so smaller organizations are going to be even more worse affected. So you have to take first and foremost a very clear inventory of your resources. And resources is not only about money, it is about money, your family's resources in terms of people that are there to do it, and the time that you are willing to spend. Because if you are going to be in a world where the elderly people will not be able to spend time in the business as much as they were doing earlier, if you do not have a younger generation who can do the running around and heavy lifting for the business, then you are going to be in trouble. In which case, you will have to look at a very different model of creating a different kind of a structure where you will have to start involving external people and professional people. This is the time to take a very clear inventory of where you stand, where you want to go, and what will it take to do there. And depending on what you have, both in terms of people, time, and money, is it worth it or is it not worth it? Is it affordable? Is it not affordable? Are you willing to make that commitment? Not willing to make the commitment? Are you willing to change your business model in order to make it happen or not willing to? This honest discussion has to take place. If you think that the day the lockdown is lifted, I will go back and open my office and I'll start working from tomorrow like it was just a bad dream, it is not going to happen. So your re-entry into the business has to be preceded by a very frank conversation within the family on what it can do, what it cannot do, what it feels it should do, it should not do, whether it can afford to do, not afford to do. This is my first very big piece of advice to all. And those who do not do it will find that they will end up probably putting good money after bad, putting good effort after bad. Not all. Some will succeed, some will fail. But the chances of, or the odds of success are going to be much less, given that there will be severe competition, severe stress, and a severe recession that will continue to haunt us for the next few years.
But that is true. Mr. Bharat, I keep on getting some responses from younger generation members, and I was talking to one of the younger member recently, and he said that fortunately this whole event is Corona has been very beneficial to him, and said why? And this is my father who never would live not going to the office. All 6 days in a week he would go. But now, being a senior citizen, he's not been to the office. We don't allow him to go to the factory. Of course, that factory is running partially, making pharmaceuticals. So it says that I'm going to the factory, and he has not been there for last months. And the level of trust that he has is now increased much more than it was ever before. He has got respect for me in his eyes, which was not there earlier. I think that two generations, younger and senior generations, I think are probably coming together. But at the same time, I think that could be the other side of the story also, where younger generation may be feeling left out in this pandemic because it's crisis, huge crisis. You need to just manage your resources, get the money rolling and cash flows also, and bring the customers back. In such situations, the younger generation may not feel that they are being utilized enough. So what would you say that the dilemma of younger generation in being participants in family business? What should be the do's and don'ts for them?
You see, Mita, my response to this is that, you know, generations is one aspect of a family. Typically, in an Indian family, there is a horizontal dimension and there is a vertical dimension. The vertical dimension is between father and son and father and daughter and mother and son, mother and daughter. That is one dimension. And typically in an Indian family, there is also a horizontal function dimension, which is uncles, multiple families, and that tending to expand. This problem will have to be looked at a much more holistic way. Remember, as I mentioned to you just now, coming out of this COVID is going to take enormous amount of resources. It is going to need monetary resources. It is going to need emotional commitment. It is going to need huge energy levels, and in the framework of a lot of restrictions. So it's not a question of only, you know, that I will now, the father will stay at home and the son will go and do the work. It is a very simplistic assumption to make. It will have many more dimensions because, for example, if the companies or the business is going to need a lot of money, and different partners coming from different parts of the family will need to put in capital. Some people may be able to put in the capital, some people may not be able to put in the capital. You know, in an ideal world, if everything is fine, yes, now it's father and son. Obviously, the son is, this is the right time to do succession planning. In fact, one good thing that has happened, let me tell you, this is not true of only business families, but also in professional houses. This powerful CEOs have come to terms with their mortality. You know, I think their sense of immortality had come in so much, both amongst owners as well as powerful CEOs, that they thought that they were invincible. I think that has gone. So therefore, it is not just about generations, it is also about succession planning in an intelligent and smart way. But my recommendation or my advice to families is not to look at things so simplistically. You see, 2 years ago, or even 6 months ago, or maybe 8 months ago, you and I, when we went to consult for a family, we would say, first define your business strategy and then come to figure out what the family strategy is going to be. The thing is turned upside down. You have to decide the family strategy first, family inventory of resources and affordability first, before you go to business. Business has become second, because the whole question of survival, good health, staying together, making sure that your basic needs are taken care of, there is a basic protection available to you as a family, that has become more important than the business. The business is going to be a part of it. So the equation has changed upside down. And that's what brings me to the core of this discussion. And that core of the discussion is that this is the right time for a frank conversation to start within the family members. I'm not trying to give it a label of a constitution, this, that, and the other. Those are all outcomes. This is the right time to take an inventory and take stock taking of where we are, where do we want to be, and can we go there? And if we have to go there, what should be the path? As a family plus employees, it may at times even better be to actually, I'm not suggesting this because it will obviously be bespoke to each family. This may also be a time to exit. Why are you taking out exit from the equation? And it is going to happen. It will happen because of it will be forced upon you. And if your assessment thinks that you are unlikely to cope up with it, it is better to do that exit yourself in a planned way. It is better to plan your own demise than somebody else coming and planning your demise. I'm not wishing it on any of the participants. And demise does not mean the demise of the business. It may mean one division of the business. It may mean separation of some members of the family who do not have the capability of being along with you. The journey is going to be so tough that there will be no luxury of passengers. Everybody will have to be a driver. Somebody will have to be the coalman, somebody will have to be the guard, somebody will have to be the TT, somebody will have to be the hostess, somebody will have to be the host. And if a part of the family is unable to cope up with this pressure, it is better to have a frank discussion and separate than to drag that along, because you're only pushing the problem down the road. This is true all the time in all circumstances, but will become more important in today's circumstances. In fact, there is a very interesting saying in Rajasthani. वो बोलते हैं कि साजे की हड़िया में देवी का भोग बन सकता है, लेकिन घर की खिचड़ी नहीं. Just look at the significance of this. When you make bhog, different people will bring different kinds of rice, different kinds of dal, and it is cooked in a huge cauldron, and everybody enjoys a community feast. Okay, but do you do the same thing when you make khichdi at home? So this is the time when you have to decide uh, what is going to be the menu in the house. And the menu in the house is not in terms of food. I'm not talking of cuisine, but talking of the way the business will have to carry forward. And if big companies, large business houses are struggling with it, they are the starting point of the cash flow for the smaller businesses. So I'm not trying to paint a picture of doom. I'm trying to paint a picture where this is the time for adult to adult conversations. It has to happen within the families. Now, if you can then formalize it in the form of a constitution, which, you and I will always talk of a constitution, but I don't want to, trouble the audience here by, jargon. Even an understanding on a piece of paper, small bullet points of what do we want to be, who will contribute what in terms of money, who will contribute who in terms of this thing. Should something happen to one of us, who will take over? What will happen to the next generation? Which son will, take up which role? Should we be in this business or should we not be in this business? Should we start employing professionals, not employing professionals? If we start employing professionals, should we empower them, not empower them? These discussions will have to be had. It is not possible to now say कि चलता है तो चलने दीजिए.
I agree that these discussions are quite sensitive. They have to happen, and families do find, that when they try to do these discussions themselves, so then there is a need for a neutral or unbiased way of looking at things, and of course that is what you and me are doing.
Let me add to that. Let me add to that. You see, when you have discussions in this kind, there are bound to be difference of opinion also. Okay, there is, again, this is one of my favorite phrases. It's in English, but it says, when poverty walks in through the door, love flies out of the window. Okay, you will see this happening in many small and medium businesses. The cost of recovering from this huge lockdown, and we don't even know whether the lockdown is going to be lockdown 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, and whether it will be W-shaped, Y-shaped, V-shaped, U-shaped, we don't know. This is going to give rise to, I will not, in fact, conflicts is maybe a very negative word, but there will be serious differences of opinion. And this is the time when families must respect the differences of opinion, because I can tell you, a lot of youngsters in particular are reassessing what they want to do with their lives. It is very easy to say that the young generation will take over. The young generation, a large part of the young generation, come from value systems which are very, very different from yours and mine. They have a mind of their own. They do not need to necessarily follow the instructions that are given. Many of them are married. Their spouses will come from a different family. They will influence them. Many of them might say that, this is not worth the hard work. I would rather do something else. I would rather do a small business, or this is not a business which gives me the comfort or social respect that I want, because, my wife comes from another family. And this is a problem for many trading families. And I can narrate you a story many years ago when, and I've said this before in a public forum as well, many, many years ago when Sunil Mittal of Airtel, he was getting into modern trade. In fact, one interviewer said, Mr. Mittal, you are such a big businessman. You, by doing this the trading business, you are going to drive out so many mom and pop stores from business. You will have blood on your hands. Don't you feel like a criminal taking away the employment of so many young, so many smaller business families? And do you know what he replied? It will not be murder, it will be suicide. Because many of these families which had traditionally businesses of grocery, wholesale, merchandising, their sons have studied in Wharton, when they come back, वो कहते हैं मैं गाला में नहीं बैठूंगा.
नहीं बैठूंगा. True.
They will kill the business,
Yes.
not I. It is going to be the family difference of values and upbringing. I was brought up in a sense of, I had to earn to survive. Today, I brought up my children in a sense of entitlement. They are not going to be putting in so much of hard work. This kind of a lockdown and this kind of a situation, there is a huge psychological introspection that is going on amongst youngsters. And think that you will assume कि कल खुल जाएगा तो मेरा लड़का वहां पर दुकान में बैठने लग जाएगा. That may be untrue. His wife will tell him no, or I'm sorry, the other way around. Or the wife and the husband will tell him, let us not do this.
Yeah.
Let us do something else.
Yeah. So this is very pertinent. I think the point which you have made is absolutely correct, absolutely right. And I'm sure that many families are going through such a dilemma. So that comes to a point where I would like to ask you this question, which has been posed many times by owners, is when the business reaches a certain level of comfort and sustainability, and families tend to have cross holdings, smaller businesses, and then one brother looks after a business and another brother looks after another business, so that each one has got their own kingdom to work with. And then there are so in that each kingdom, again they lose out the focus on their shared values and shared vision. That happens many a time. Another situation is where there is only one family, many family members, and there is always, they say, heavy at the top. So youngsters do not have a place there in the business to play any role, and they want to then get out and get into some new businesses. So there are two situations which are contradictory. One is that youngsters want to be on their own, or the family members think that they should start their own ventures or own activities and own startup and get out of the ongoing business. And another situation is where there are several ongoing businesses jointly held by the families, and they may be thinking that, yes, let us come under one umbrella, or should they come under one umbrella?
Okay.
In these two scenarios, what is your take on this?
My view is, you see, I have a very strong view on this. And the view is as follows. You can separate as a family, but continue to be in business. Okay, I'll explain to you why. You look at a joint venture. What happens? A joint venture are two complete strangers, okay, who get together for running a business. They have a formal agreement of rights, obligations, separation of returns, investments, etc. Okay. So when you divide a family and stay on as a business, you become a joint venture partners. Okay. And that is possible because it is possible to create a structure stripped of emotions. Okay. But unfortunately, the converse is not true. That is the problem, that you cannot be united as a family and run separate businesses. Now you will say, why? Now your first question will be why? That is because the moment you run separate businesses, each business will be subject to a different set of dynamics, different set of profitability, different set of resource allocation, resource requirements, etc. When families stay as one and run separate businesses, you know where the conflict starts? All families. मेरे भाई के धंधे में 1000 करोड़ रुपए लग गए, रिटर्न आता है 7%. मेरे बिजनेस में 500 करोड़ लगा है, 12% आता है. वो उसको काम कम करना पड़ता है, उसको ज्यादा काम करना पड़ता है. Because businesses will have a life of their own. They are not going to be driven by the dynamics of what is happening in the common living room. And the strife in this competition or the resource allocation problem at the business level will start percolating into the family relation. The conversation starts about he's doing well, I'm not doing so well. Somebody will prosper, somebody will not prosper. Somebody will need more money, somebody will need less money. Somebody will give more dividends, somebody will give less dividends. Somebody will have a flashy lifestyle, somebody will have a conservative lifestyle. So the family, unfortunately, is tied up not only by blood, but also by emotion. And these emotions become so difficult that the competition in the outside world becomes a competition inside the house. But on the other hand, if you divide the family, If you separate as a family, but continue in the business, then each one of them will become a JV partner, which you can define. What he or she does at home is not visible to the others. And they are partaking of the bhog from the same hadia. So this is this is where the problem is. That if today you take an inventory and you say, I'm going to be doing 4 businesses. Let's take an example. Business A will be run by A brother. Business B will be run by B brother. Business C will be run by C brother. Let's take a simple case 3. You have to draw up a plan and say, in the next 3 years, how much money will be needed? What will be the returns from this business? Because it will not be the same. And one brother will have to cross-subsidize somebody else. And if the tolerance of that cross-subsidy is not acceptable, it is better to do a clean legal separation, do a one-time settlement of assets and liabilities, and move on. You will stay better as friends.
I agree. So each family has its unique
Exactly.
environment.
Exactly. You see, and the same love and bonding which the uncles and brothers had, the first cousin, second cousin, you can't expect. They will have different, lifestyles, different education, different mind. So I sometimes advise families that what you do is do a separation of family assets, but don't do a separation of business assets. Sign a joint venture agreement just as you would have if you signed an agreement with Siemens in Germany. When you walk into a board meeting, treat your brother as another fellow director. When you walk into a shareholders meeting, treat your brother as only another shareholder. When one of the senior members of the family becomes a chairman, in the meeting of the company, treat him only as a chairman. Don't bring your relationship or what is happening in the dining table at home.
Yeah.
But if you start staying in the same house, if you start partaking of a common pool of family assets, it is very difficult for human beings to strip this emotion. So beyond a certain size, it is better to separate as a family and stay on as a business. It's a very, I have absolutely clear in my mind. I'm not saying that it will happen to all. It will happen at a certain stage, but this is a thought that should stay in people's mind.
Yeah, I fully agree. The dining room decisions and conference room decisions are very different.
Absolutely separate.
They have to be separate. Yes, I agree. I think we are now coming closer to 12:30, so we have got some time limitations now, and there are some questions also. So I would just very quickly, I'll ask you if you can just tell us in a minute or so that what are your recommendations for owner families to deal with this new normal? What would you recommend?
Simple recommendation is that this is a good opportunity for you to have a conversation. Okay. And the conversation need not come to an immediate conclusion, but at least start the process of having what I would say, not unpleasant, but uncomfortable talk. You know, things that you want to close your eyes and vision. And here again, I will go back to medicine. Families and human beings are very good at handling good news and good celebration. So what we call as a dopamine, the chemical that makes you feel good. Families are very good at handling dopamine related conversations, but families are very bad at having conversations which require use of adrenaline and cortisol. Scientific fact. I'm not saying this because of trying to sound dramatic. And this is the time when you will need a injection that has a combination of dopamine and adrenaline both. Now, if you were to do that, if there is somebody in the family who is completely non-partisan, then the family can have the discussion with that person enabling and facilitating it. Some families have a family friend who everybody trusts and who at times can become dispassionate. Use him. If you don't have that, or you feel that you don't want to reveal your secrets to anybody, then there is no harm, there is no embarrassment in seeking professional help from an external agency. After all, when you start having fever, first 2 days you take paracetamol, third day you do go to a doctor. Is it not embarrassing for you to say that I've got a doctor? And people go to doctors even with most private illnesses. So this is exactly like that. But it is time to start a conversation. And if you think that the conversation is not going the right way, seek help. This would be my advice. Don't postpone it when it becomes inevitable and becomes so bitter, itna tikha aur itna kadwa ho jayega, that at that time you will not even be able to have a sensible conversation. People, in fact, more people die because they go to the doctor too late. Nobody dies because of coming to a doctor too early.
Yeah. So don't wait, like corona's symptoms, they come up as 101 temperature, fever, and then you ask for check. But
treat your family issues just as you would treat your own family as your personal health.
Yeah, personal health. Very true, very true. I think it's before I come to conclusion of our conversation, there are a few questions. So, Mr. Barat, let me just have a look at this. The questions are, this one question is, that will business as usual, profits at all cost, irrespective of social and environmental consequences, continue after the lockdown is lifted? I think that the business as usual will be there, irrespective of social and environmental consequences.
The
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So let me answer this question. Let's assume that suddenly everything gets lifted on 1st of June. Will it be business as usual? Answer is no, because people have lost their confidence. People will be very worried to travel. In fact, I was talking to a client of mine, and he said he's entitled to open his office. He opened his office, and he's entitled to 30% of. Only 2 people turned up. They said, why should we come? Because if something I was to fall ill, the structure that exists today in the state is going to rob me of my dignity and my family's dignity. I'm not going to take that chance. So at least for the next 6 months to a year, when there is no therapy, when there is no vaccination, question of it being natural normal does not arise. Now, the second part of it is that after those 6 months, the economic situation will be so desperate that again, it will not be normal. So it will be driven by different circumstances. Next 24 months, don't expect things to be normal.
So profit at all costs is not going to be the formula now, because there are much more riskier things that we have to deal with, and so the profits at all costs may not be there.
And in fact, I'll just add to that. Again, I'm sure this gentleman would be keen to know. You see, there is another stakeholder that we are completely missing in this. However, we may be a family business. We work through employees, and we may not recognize them, but they are a very important part of the value chain. They will be driven by their own set of emotions, yes. And you cannot you cannot run your business without them.
Without them, yes. That is going to be a big game changer. Yes. There is another question. Has the government done enough to revive SMEs? Or has the bulk of rupees 20 lakh crore package gone to large corporates as sluggies? What do you say? It's something.
I would like to have a chat with the gentleman who's asked, or lady who's asked this question, because I don't know what this 20 lakh is. I can only figure out where it has gone only if I can decipher what it is. So if he has any ideas, I would be very happy to understand.
Yeah. But I guess
I really don't know.
The essence of the question, I guess it's is there something that government has done to revive SMEs? Are we in near future going to see that SMEs will be revived, or some help will be given to them so that they can come back on their feet?
Yeah. So if you are, without wanting to sound political, has enough been done? Answer is no. At least, even if it is done, I cannot see it. If somebody else can see it, but thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah.
But whether it will be done in the future, we don't know. We can speculate.
Yeah.
But the SMEs are always at the bottom end of the value chain, because the front end is always by the larger companies which deal with the consumer or with this thing. So the whole process has to start. It is, nobody will be able to do well in isolation. Even a company like, say, for example, if I take a company like Nestle, etc., will not do well, cannot do well. I sit on the board of a very large corporation in which we buy 50% of our products from small scale sector. And I'll name the company to you, Bata. We just announced our results yesterday. You please see the results.
Yes.
You please see the results for yourself.
That is, I think. Okay, I have a question from my dear friend, Professor Manoj Joshi, and he's asking me that there are two major challenges. What could be two major challenges as we travel along COVID-19, internal and external? Professor Joshi, we have heard about challenges from Mr. Barat, that what are these challenges going to be? And if I have to say the two major challenges, then I would say internally, it is the family's communication, family's cohesion, how to keep our cohesion and harmony intact in such difficult times is going to be one challenge. And externally, I think the challenge is going to be the survival of the business. Survival may not be a big challenge, but still continuity of keeping the business going and organization going and being strong is going to be these two challenges, which I think they are eminent in front of us. There are some questions.
Completely agree with you, Mita, that
Yes.
economic is the external challenge and internal is the family's ability to deal with it maturely, deal with such adversity of such magnitude maturely. I think these are the two challenges.
That is going to be, that is going to be the challenge. So when do you think, so the question is here, that what is the time to do transition planning? What is the time to do transition planning in the family?
So transition planning, whether in the family or whether in a professional organization or whether it is to do with human beings or even brands and products, has to be a part of a plan and not a reaction to an episode. So therefore, this is my first general principle that I would like to put on the table. Okay. So you cannot say, oh, today is I think I have now turned 65 and therefore I should do transition planning. Or because COVID has come, I have to do transition planning. Or I have, it happens in many families, and this is going to happen in every family. I have now been diagnosed with a terminal illness, and therefore I need to do a transition planning. Any transition planning like that will always be suboptimal because you are reacting to an external situation. Okay. So my first advice to all of you is always do transition planning when you are at the peak rather than when you are at the low. Okay. And make that as a continuous process and not an event. Aaj se mera iska Raj Abhishek hua. Okay. And he's become my this thing is a ceremonial communication of this thing. If your children are going to be a part of your business going forward, start inculcating that sense of belonging, that responsibility and affection for the business from the day they finish their college and start coming in. Yeah. Map out a path for them. Maybe, for example, many families do it and best families do it. You look at the RPG family, Anand Goenka. After he finished his college, he went and spent 4 years in an external organization. There will be accelerated promotion once he comes in. Dekhiye, Seth ka beta hai, wo to hoga hi. But he went through a process. So transition is not an event, it's a process. But today, because of COVID, maybe you will have to do FDA is doing accelerated approval of drugs. You may have to do an accelerated transition. But it has still to follow a process. Maybe what would take 6 months, you will capture it in 3 months. Yeah. But you can't make it into only a ceremonial event that, you call a big party and throw a big party and say that, aaj se wo mera wo ho gaya. Iska Raj Abhishek.
Yeah, that is true. The transition has to be done when the times are good and the family has got bonding rather than things start falling apart. There is one question related to business domain, and here is our participant Yash is asking that will there have to be mergers of small businesses in order to survive in the new normal? You think that the small businesses will have mergers, larger possibilities?
Yeah, there will be. There will be. Not only in small businesses, there are going to be mega mergers as well. Because, the problem will be one of scale and the problem will be one of cash flows. But when I talk of merger, there are two things I would like to say. One is driven by economics. Anybody contemplating a merger to survive, I would say that whilst economics should be the 70% driver, if you are continuing to retain an economic and particularly a management interest, please do an equally good diligence on the chemistry of the person that you are going to merge with. Right. Don't be driven by economics alone. And this is going to be true even now more than ever. Because earlier, even if it didn't work out, exit was not so difficult. But with market subdued, your exit will also become very difficult in case it doesn't work out. You know, walking out of a marriage today will be a little more difficult than what it would have happened when economy is moving and buoyant.
I agree. And there's one question which is small, which we have, I guess we have 5 minutes to this is one challenge which comes to almost all the families, and where there is a new entry, or say the bahu, daughter-in-law, comes from the other family, and when she comes from a different background, different culture in the family, so then there is a sense that son is under, so there's one question one of participants is asking, that son is under influence of his wife. How such disturbances could be managed, or they can be avoided, or the interference of bahu can be avoided? So this is one relationship issue. Which
it's a very interesting question. So let me try and answer this based on my experience in different families. There are some families who, as a part of their constitution, now the constitution does not mean that it has to be written like a big book, but at least some document or some understanding which is formal.
Policies, yes.
Always lay down certain limits beyond which एक लक्ष्मण रेखा खींच देते हैं जिसके आगे कोई नहीं पार कर सकता. As far as business is concerned, they ring, or let me put it this way, they ring fence the business from family considerations based on certain objective criteria, and that criteria is applicable to everybody. चाहे वो favorite bahu हो, चाहे non-favorite bahu, चाहे, in fact, one thing is about, you know, you're talking of only the bahu. You know, there are many families which are having a problem कि लड़की की शादी हुई and the tradition in the family is लड़की अब दूसरे घर की बहू हो गई. She gets divorced and she comes back. वो भी पढ़ी लिखी है. She is entitled under law to all the share of the property, but should she be allowed to enter the business or not? So the first thing is, as Mita said, what are your family traditions and values? And if there is a certain tradition and value and you believe that it should be upheld in the larger interest on the longevity, let that be stated upfront and done. Second is, however, if you don't have that, this is a problem not only of bahu, it is a problem of generation. It is a problem of generation. And since this is the last question, for the purpose of this particular presentation, I took the trouble of researching a Urdu couplet, okay? And you have all heard this, and with this I would like to end this. And this is a couplet from Sahib Ludhianvi, who was a very, very famous poem. But you know, when I read this out, you will understand what it means. And this is from a film, and this is a song that you have heard of. But it will answer this question, and I would like to leave it with you as a food for thought. Taruf rog ban jaye, usko bhulna behtar. Taruf means, you know, an introduction. If taruf rog ban jaye, to usko bhulna behtar. Taluk, that's a relationship. Boj ban jaye, usko chhodna अच्छा. वो अफसाना जिसे अंजाम तक लाना ना हो मुमकिन, वो अफसाना अंजाम तक लाना ना हो मुमकिन, उसे एक खूबसूरत मोड़ देकर छोड़ना अच्छा. चलो एक बार फिर से अजनबी बन जाए हम जो. My strong belief is, and this is true of all the large big corporations, whether it is Bata, whether it is Nike, whether it is Pepsi, whether it is Coke, all over the world started as family businesses. They have survived all this while because they realized the right point where a relationship became a burden rather than an advantage. It is better to separate as a family and draw a formal relationship of running a business than allowing your family issues to become. So for example, in this case, if the son and his wife feel very differently, it is better for the son to be given a money and let him start and drive his own destiny. You know, Khalil Gibran said, your children they do not belong to you. They come through you. Yours is just a body through which they come. They come with their own destiny. Don't push it beyond the point. Ye nahi chalega.
Yeah. Very nice. Yeah, it is also, they also say that the business which you are doing is consider this as a concept of stewardship, that it is a loan
Exactly.
by your
You are
children.
steward of the business.
It is
You are a
your,
steward of the business. That
yeah.
business. You are not going to carry it with you to heaven.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's one question of Ashwin, but should we have loss and account instead P&L account while filing our returns next year? I'm sorry, Ashwin, in this forum we are talking about families and their family challenges in running the business. So though Mr. Bharat is a very renowned chartered accountant, but the answer, I guess, it's you will get the best from your chartered accountant. So that will be there. And I think more, there's one question by Yash: will the technology advancements will be an important part for survival for small businesses?
Absolutely. Survive. It will not survive. Not just small business. It will be. And I will also, Ashwin, Yash, I will also tell you that you have to be prepared for one more thing that will happen because of technology. It will dehumanize relationships much more. This is the biggest problem that I see, in this, that even within a family, use of technology will start dehumanizing the relationship. Facebook was bad enough. Work from home is even worse. And now with all this video conferencing, Zoom and Teams, you will find that, that very, that human bonding, that adhesive, जो उसका आटा है, वो सूखने लग जाएगा. So, but it is an inevitable. If you have to be in business, you have to adopt it. But you have to therefore make a very, very special effort as a family, that even if technology takes over, you will still have a communication going which is stripped of technology, devoid of technology. Don't ever give that up. The day it opens, meet as a family, have meals as a family. Don't give that up.
So I think it's now we are coming to the end of our webinar, and I will just have a conclusion, 3 things, which are 3 points, which I will sum up what Mr. Bharat said us and interacted with us and my views. Disruptions are not going to be just once in lifetime phenomenon. They are bound to happen more, and therefore the families will have to prepare themselves for complexities and unexpected changes if they want to continue for life. Next generation is going to be a turning point, and it's going to be the catalyst for change. So prepare them, train them, educate them to do the business with the passion that you have as a senior generation, and pass on the values so that legacy can be built. Analyze their energies when the time comes. And the third part, I would say that the good governance practices, technology, systems, processes, and in the business will be the roadmap for success, will be the roadmap for longevity of the business and harmony of the family. So with this, I thank you all. Ushaji, thank you. Mr. Bharat, thank you. And it's been a real pleasure to interact with you. And I'm sure our participants also would have found this interaction and our samvad interesting and something to take home back with them. So I think we'll close our webinar with this.
Thank you. Namaste. Abhi to namaste karna. Abhi no more shaking hands.
No more. Yes. Ushaji, shall we close the webinar? What is your system?
Yeah, I'll just